She nervously tapped her foot, waiting for the results of her job interview. The silence in the small waiting room felt suffocating, punctuated only by the rhythmic tick of the grandfather clock in the corner. Her stomach churned. It had been her dream job, a park ranger position at Monument Valley, Utah. The interview itself had been strange. The park director, a weathered man named Henry with kind eyes and a gruff demeanor, had asked her very little about her qualifications. Instead, he'd spent most of the time staring out the window, a deep frown etched on his forehead. Finally, he'd mumbled something about getting back to her and ushered her out. Disheartened, she wandered out of the park headquarters and into the vastness of Monument Valley. The towering sandstone mesas, bathed in the golden hues of the setting sun, took her breath away. Despite the interview blues, a sense of calm washed over her as she gazed at the ancient landscape. She pulled out her phone to capture a picture, the towering Mitten Buttes filling the frame. As she reviewed the photo, a jolt of ice shot through her. In the background, barely visible amongst the towering rock formations, stood a figure. A woman. She was slender, with long dark hair cascading down her back, dressed in a long, flowing dress that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. An unsettling familiarity prickled at Sarah. The woman seemed to be smiling at her. She zoomed in on the figure, her heart hammering in her chest. The grainy quality of the phone picture made details hard to discern, but there was an undeniable eeriness about the woman. Her smile seemed fixed, almost manic, and her eyes, they were vacant, devoid of any life. Sarah frantically scanned the landscape, searching for the woman, but she was gone. Had she imagined it? She shook her head, a cold sweat prickling her skin. The encounter left a sour taste in her mouth, tainting the serenity of the moment. The next few days were a blur. Sarah received a polite rejection email from the park, thanking her for her interest, but informing her they'd chosen a candidate with more experience. Dejected, she considered her options. Maybe Monument Valley wasn't meant to be. Then, a knock on her door. It was Henry, the park director, his face etched with concern. "Sarah," he began hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you." He explained that after her interview, he'd reviewed the security footage from outside his office. The footage, he said, showed something unsettling. He pulled out a laptop and showed her a grainy clip. It was the hallway outside his office, just after Sarah had left. The screen flickered, and then, for a brief moment, a figure materialized in the empty corridor. The woman. The same woman from Sarah's photo, her vacant eyes staring directly into the security camera. The clip cut out just as abruptly as it had started. Sarah's blood ran cold. This wasn't a coincidence. She bombarded Henry with questions, but he had no answers. He admitted the park had a history of strange occurrences, whispers of a spirit that roamed the mesas. He'd never believed them, but now, fueled by a morbid curiosity and a desperate need for answers, Sarah decided to stay in Monument Valley. She rented a small cabin on the outskirts of the park and spent her days exploring the ancient landscape, drawn to the very mesas that now seemed to hold a dark secret. Days turned into weeks. The unsettling feeling of being watched persisted. Several times, she'd catch a glimpse of the woman in the periphery of her vision, on a lonely desert road, reflected in a still pool of water, always just out of reach. The woman never spoke, never approached, but her presence was a constant source of unease. One evening, Sarah was sketching the Merrick Butte in the fading light. Lost in the moment, she didn't notice the approaching figure until it was too late. The woman stood before her, no longer a fleeting glimpse, but a solid presence. Sarah's breath hitched. The woman's eyes were black voids, devoid of any humanity. A single word escaped her lips, a raspy whisper that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "Remember." The woman turned and vanished into the gathering darkness, leaving Sarah trembling on the dusty ground. The word echoed in her mind, its meaning unclear, but its menace undeniable. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a gnawing fear that clawed at her sanity. Days later, Sarah stumbled upon a hidden alcove nestled within the labyrinthine canyons. Inside the alcove, dust motes danced in a shaft of sunlight filtering through a crack in the ceiling. The air hung heavy with an ancient stillness. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of trepidation and morbid curiosity urging her forward. In the center of the alcove stood a lone figure sculpted from a white, almost luminous marble. It was a woman, her form graceful and flowing, her expression serene. Yet, a coldness emanated from the statue, a sense of wrongness that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. As she drew closer, a gasp escaped her lips. The statue's features were an uncanny replica of the woman who had been haunting her. The same long, dark hair, the same vacant eyes, but here, they were rendered in cold, lifeless marble. Etched on the base of the statue, weathered with time, was an inscription in an unfamiliar language. Sarah fumbled with her phone, trying to capture a picture of the inscription with the translation app. The app whirred for a moment, then displayed a chilling message, "Guardian of the Mesa." Suddenly, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the narrow canyon. "You shouldn't be here." Sarah spun around, her eyes darting wildly. There was no one there. The voice seemed to emanate from the very walls of the alcove, ancient and powerful. Panic clawed at her throat. She stumbled back, her gaze fixed on the statue. A memory flickered in her mind, a childhood story her grandmother used to tell her about a Navajo legend, the legend of the Mesa Guardian, a watchful spirit who protected the sacred lands of Monument Valley. The legend spoke of a young woman who ignored warnings and trespassed on forbidden grounds. The Mesa Guardian, enraged by her intrusion, transformed her into a physical manifestation of her disrespect, a cold, unfeeling statue, forever bound to the valley. The realization hit Sarah like a physical blow. The unsettling encounters, the chilling whispers, they weren't random. She was being singled out. But why? What had she done to anger the Mesa Guardian? Desperation fueled her next action. Grabbing a piece of charcoal from her sketching bag, she scrawled a message beneath the inscription, "I meant no disrespect. I only seek answers." The silence in the alcove stretched, thick and suffocating. Sarah held her breath, waiting for a response. Minutes bled into an eternity. Just as she was about to turn and flee, a sound echoed through the canyon, a soft sigh, almost like the wind rustling through dry leaves. A faint warmth emanated from the statue, spreading through the alcove. Tentatively, Sarah reached out and touched the cold marble. A jolt of energy shot through her, a sense of understanding washing over her. Images flooded her mind, visions of a time-long past, of a thriving Navajo tribe living in harmony with the land. She saw the mesas not as barren rock formations, but as living entities, pulsating with a sacred energy. She understood then that the Mesa Guardian wasn't a malevolent spirit, but a protector, a keeper of the valley's secrets. The visions faded, leaving behind a profound sense of peace. The warmth from the statue subsided, and the air grew cool once more. Sarah knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that the Mesa Guardian had acknowledged her plea. She emerged from the alcove, a newfound determination etched on her face. She wouldn't run. She would stay, learn the ways of the ancient land, and perhaps, one day, earn the trust of the Mesa Guardian. The following weeks were a blur of exploration and learning. Sarah devoured books on Navajo history and culture, spending her days hiking the mesas and soaking in the wisdom of the ancient landscape. The unsettling encounters ceased. The woman no longer appeared in the periphery of her vision. One crisp morning, as the sun cast long shadows across the valley floor, Sarah stumbled upon a hidden oasis nestled within a labyrinth of canyons. A crystal-clear pool shimmered in the sunlight, surrounded by lush greenery, a stark contrast to the surrounding desert. As she knelt by the pool's edge, a deep, rumbling voice echoed through the canyon. This time, there was no menace in the tone, only a sense of ancient wisdom. "You have learned well," the voice boomed. Sarah looked around wildly, searching for the source, but saw nothing. "The land remembers all," the voice continued. "It remembers those who respect it and those who trespass. You have shown respect, and for that, you are welcomed." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes.